There is a war happening, not outside of you, but within. It doesn't scream. It doesn't shout. It doesn't show up in the news or in conversation. It shows up in the quiet, in the pause before a decision, in the moment you say, maybe tomorrow. That war is the invisible battle between the old patterns that keep you poor and the silent voice that keeps trying to make you wealthy, not just with money, but with power, direction, clarity, the kind of wealth that builds temples inside of men, the kind that leaves fingerprints on eternity. Napoleon Hill never taught how to get rich. He taught how to become the kind of person who cannot help but attract wealth because their mind has been trained to command it. That's the real secret no one wants to say plainly. You don't get wealthy by working harder. You get wealthy by becoming harder to manipulate, by anything outside of you. Most people never rewire the mind. They just decorate the prison. They change careers, change friends, change routines, but the operating system stays untouched. The beliefs remain inherited. The thoughts stay default, and the results predictable. If you've ever wondered why you almost succeed, why you start with fire and end in silence, why you know what to do but don't do it, it's not because you're weak. It's because your mind is still running on a pattern that was designed to keep you surviving, not expanding. But here's what they don't tell you. Wealth is not a gift. It's a side effect of thought, of discipline, of internal evolution. And every person who built it from nothing had to go through the same crucible, rewire the mind or repeat the life. This isn't a motivational video. It's an exorcism of every quiet lie that told you to play small, of every inherited limitation passed down like a curse, of every belief that said, this is just how life is. No, it's how life was until you learn the truth. Let's begin. Before wealth is ever earned, it is remembered. That's the code most never realize. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. The first and most powerful habit of the wealthy isn't action. It isn't grinding. It isn't even belief. It's identity. It's who they think from. You see, the average person chases wealth like a shadow, trying tactic after tactic, business after business, hoping something will finally click. But the mind they bring to the strategy is the same one that failed before, and the shadow remains out of reach. Napoleon Hill said, there are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. But here's what he really meant. If you're trying to build a wealthy life from a poor identity, you are already sabotaging yourself before the game even begins. Look in the mirror, not the one hanging on your wall. The mirror inside. Ask yourself with dangerous honesty, who are you being right now? Not just in what you say, but what you tolerate, what you delay, what you avoid, what you believe. Because every choice you make is a vote for the identity you're currently loyal to. And the results in your life are simply the harvest of that loyalty. If you identify with lack, you will unconsciously protect it. If you identify with struggle, you will subconsciously recreate it. If you identify with getting by, you will never allow yourself to break through. Even when opportunity shows up, you won't take it. Not because it wasn't real, but because it didn't match who you think you are. That's how powerful the subconscious identity. It filters your world to fit your familiar. And so the first true wealth habit is to think from the end, not from where you are, not from what you see, but from the version of you that already exists in the future, the one who is already living the life you're still dreaming about. The future is not far away. It's a frequency, and to tune into it, you have to rehearse that version of yourself until it no longer feels foreign. This is where most people fail. They try to think positive, but they never embody. They say affirmations, but never adjust identity. They plan, but from the mindset of fear, scarcity, and uncertainty, never realizing they are building empires on sinking sand. The real ones, the silent architects of wealth, they operate from the end. They don't hope to become. They act as if they already are. They don't wait for evidence. They become the evidence. Read that again. They don't wait for evidence. They become the evidence. Now imagine you are not who you think you are. You are who you have been rehearsing. And every day you repeat the patterns of hesitation, self-doubt, and undercharging. You are wiring your nervous system to defend a false identity, but that's not who you really are. That's just who you got used to being. There's a mirror inside you that remembers more. A mirror that's been covered by time, trauma, and the voices of small thinkers. But underneath all of that, There is clarity, a self that was never touched by failure, a blueprint of your wealthy identity waiting to be decoded. And that's where you begin, not with effort, but with embodiment. Sit in silence and see yourself at the level of life you're called to. Hold it, not just for a few seconds, for minutes, for days, for weeks. Speak from it, dress from it, decide from it, and most of all, suffer no contradiction. Because the moment you claim a new identity and act against it, you confirm the old one. Hill called this the definiteness of purpose. But even deeper, it was about deciding who you are before the world believes you. When your mind begins to align with that version, a quiet shift happens. You stop forcing, you stop begging, you stop chasing. And instead, life begins to move toward you, not because it owes you anything, but because you are finally tuned to receive. This is not magic. This is mathematics of the mind. Identity is the equation. Desire is the fuel. Belief is the current. Action is the spark. And wealth is the echo. But it always starts here, not with what you have, not with what you do, but with who you are willing to become. So ask yourself now, what kind of person would already have the life I want? And then, what would it cost me to start thinking like them today? Because if you don't think from the end, you will forever be ruled by the beginning. And the beginning was never designed to be your home. This will dive into Hill's fire principle. No back doors, no plan Bs, just ignition. There is a kind of desire that destroys you, not in the way you fear, but in the way that erases every version of you that was willing to settle. Napoleon Hill called it burning desire, a state of mental heat so fierce it becomes a furnace for rebirth. And here's the truth most will never touch. Wealth doesn't answer to wishers. It answers to those who have made it a requirement, not an option, not a preference, a demand written into their very identity, as vital as breath, as sacred as legacy. This is the second habit that rewires the mind for wealth. You must burn the escape plan. Every wealthy mind is built in fire, and fire does not ask for your comfort. It asks for your full surrender. You have to want it more than you want to be liked, more than you want to be understood, more than you want to stay safe, more than you want to stay the same. And that's the part that makes people turn away, not because they don't want wealth, but because they aren't willing to become the kind of person who cannot live without it. Hill said, the starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desire brings weak results. Just as a small fire makes a small amount of heat, and the fire must be fed daily. Desire is not a one-time spark. It is a habit of mental combustion, an internal flame you feed through vision, repetition, and elimination. Let me say that again. Vision, repetition, elimination. Vision gives the fire direction. Repetition gives it rhythm. Elimination gives it strength. Because until you eliminate the distractions, the indulgences, the emotional outs, you are still giving the subconscious a back door. And the mind always escapes through the easiest exit. But what happens when there are no exits left? What happens when you burn the bridge back to mediocrity? When you set fire to every excuse, every old identity, every suit and lie? What happens is that you ignite. This is what Hill meant by burning desire. It is not desperation. It is not frantic hustle. It is the quiet, focused obsession of someone who has made a sacred vow to never return to a life of limitation. There is a line in every person's life where they either become the flame or die in the smoke. Those who become wealthy have all crossed it. They stopped playing with the idea of success and started living as if it was oxygen, non-negotiable. Required? Ask yourself this. Have I truly decided, or am I still dating the idea of wealth? Because if your desire is lukewarm, your actions will be erratic, your results will be unstable, and your belief will fracture under pressure. But when desire becomes pure flame, you stop needing to be motivated. You wake up with hunger. You move with clarity. You endure with dignity. You no longer tolerate environments, conversations, or habits that insult your future. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You no longer explain your ambition because it is not up for negotiation. It is a fire, and fire does not apologize. This is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. When the internal fire is lit, your nervous system calibrates to a higher standard. You become less reactive, more intentional, unshakable. And that is the kind of person wealth recognizes. Not the desperate, but the determined. Not the loud, but the certain. So here's the question that defines the rest of your life. What are you willing to set fire to in order to rise? Because you cannot keep feeding the fire and protecting the past. One will consume the other, and only one leads you to freedom. There's a voice inside you that never stops speaking. It speaks when you're confident. It speaks when you're afraid. It speaks when you're silent, especially when you're silent. But here's the hidden truth. That voice isn't you, not entirely. It's the accumulation of every thought, belief, and identity you've rehearsed, repeating itself until it becomes your reality. Napoleon Hill called it autosuggestion, the mechanism by which the subconscious mind is trained, sculpted, and programmed. Not by accident, but by deliberate repetition. Every time you speak a belief, even if it's false, your subconscious listens. And the subconscious doesn't judge truth. It obeys rhythm. That's what most people miss. Your subconscious is not a gatekeeper. It is a servant. And it responds to the most repeated commands, not the most powerful ones. So when you say, I'm not good with money, I always mess this up, that kind of success just isn't for people like me. You're not just venting. You are installing code. Wealth is not built from affirmations whispered once. It's built from suggestions repeated until they echo without effort. Read that again. Your mind becomes what you repeat in silence. Autosuggestion is not hype. It's neural engineering, the reprogramming of your emotional and mental DNA. And just like a song stuck in your head, the phrases you repeat most shape your inner soundtrack. So here's the third habit of the wealthy. They program themselves on purpose every day. They don't leave their mental state to chance. They don't wait to feel abundant. They command abundance into the subconscious through ritual until it becomes the default. This is what Hill meant when he wrote, any idea, plan, or purpose may be placed in the mind through repetition of thought. But repetition alone isn't enough. It must be fused with emotion. That's the amplifier. That's the current that charges the words. Emotion creates impression, and impression creates identity. When you speak your auto-suggestion, you're not just saying them to yourself. You're saying them to the version of you that still doesn't believe it's possible. So speak with authority. Speak with vision. Speak like the person you are becoming, not the person you've been. And here's the technique. 3 times a day, with full focus, with full feeling. Speak your definiteness of purpose. Speak your wealth identity. Speak your power until it no longer feels like a lie, because it's not. It's a memory of your future, echoing back to you. Autosuggestion also works in reverse, and that's what makes it dangerous. If you don't take control of the loop, it will be filled for you by media, by family, by fear, by old programming that was never yours to begin with. And soon, you'll be thinking thoughts that don't belong to you, living a life designed by other people's limitations. But not anymore. You are the author now. The voice in your head is your responsibility. And the more deliberate your suggestions become, the more your external reality will begin to mirror the internal script. It will feel strange at first. The mind will resist. It always does when you break the loop. But if you persist, if you speak like the storm has already passed, if you affirm like wealth is already coded in your DNA, you will begin to believe. And when belief hits the subconscious, the world bends, not through magic, through mechanics. Because your thoughts become feelings. Your feelings become identity. Your identity dictates behavior, and behavior builds the empire. It always starts with the whisper. The ones you speak at 6 a.m. when no one's watching. The ones you write down in silence while others scroll. The ones that sound absurd until they become undeniable. So here's the question. What are you suggesting to yourself when no one else is around? Because the mind is always listening. And whatever it hears most becomes law. You can either repeat the past or rewire the future. The tool is already in your hand. Use it wisely. This will go deep into the power of clear, definite purpose and why wealth never stays in the hands of the vague. There is nothing more dangerous to wealth than a wandering mind. A man with no direction is a man easily controlled, not by others, but by his own confusion, by doubt, by endless options, by the emotional addiction to indecision. Napoleon Hill warned of this more than once. He didn't just say wealth required a goal. He said it required definiteness, a precise aim, a clear target, a line drawn in the sand of your mind. Because without that, the mind drifts. And drifting, Hill said, is the devil's tool. A drifting mind is reactive instead of intentional. It adapts to the outside world instead of designing from the inside. It becomes a passenger in its own life, moving but never arriving. That is why the fourth wealth habit is this: definiteness of purpose. You must decide clearly, specifically, and absolutely what you are building, why it matters, and who you must become to achieve it. Not a general hope, not a vague dream. A decision backed by precision. When the wealthy think, they think like architects, not painters throwing colors on a wall, but builders, measuring, envisioning, designing the structure of their lives down to the foundation. If you ask them what they're creating, they could tell you without blinking. Can you? Not what you might want, not what you hope happens, but what you have declared as inevitable. Hill wrote, "There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants and a burning desire to possess it." This is not just about setting goals. It's about eliminating mental fog. You cannot rewire the mind while entertaining confusion. Clarity is the tool that severs what doesn't belong. It's the blade that cuts through emotional noise. It's the compass that silences external pressure. Here's the test. If someone pressed pause on your life today and asked, "What are you building? What does it look like in 5 years? What does it provide, solve, or become?" Would you hesitate? Because hesitation is a symptom of drift, and drift will rob you with a smile. The wealthy do not drift. They anchor. They write their purpose until it becomes a mental contract. Every action serves the mission. Every yes is filtered through the vision. Every no is a reinforcement of alignment. And that's why wealth gravitates to them. Because the universe favors those who move with clarity. Even the wind respects a ship with a clear destination. But here's what no one talks about. Definiteness comes at a cost. You will have to say no to distraction, to comfort, to the illusion of unlimited choices. You will have to narrow your focus, cut off the lesser options, and step into the terrifying beauty of total commitment. It's easier to be vague, to chase multiple goals, to flirt with your potential, but never marry it. But wealth doesn't flirt. It responds to those who have made a decision and burn the rest. This is your turning point. Define what you are here to build. Write it, speak it, obsess over it, and most of all, protect it from the world and from the part of you still tempted to wander. Because the moment you become definite, the mind stops negotiating, and the world begins to conspire. We now move into the invisible foundation beneath all achievement, the internal certainty that shapes external outcomes. There is a kind of belief that bends the world, not because it's loud, not because it's confident, but because it is unchallenged within. That belief is called faith, and in the philosophy of Napoleon Hill, it is not religious, it is mechanical, it is psychological, it is creative law, and without it, all wealth strategies collapse. Because here's the truth: no one can outwork disbelief. You can read every book, launch every business, chase every tactic, but if underneath it all, you don't believe it's possible, you're planting seeds in concrete. Faith is the invisible foundation of every fortune. And unlike hope, which is passive, faith is active. It is belief backed by action. It is certainty enforced by discipline. It is the internal weapon that cuts through delay, fear, and hesitation. Hill said, "Faith is the only known antidote for failure, but not the kind of faith most people talk about. Not vague optimism, not let's see what happens energy. The wealthy operate from a different level. Their faith is engineered, built deliberately through repetition, visualization, and emotional fusion. They don't wait for belief to appear. They create it by suggestion, by evidence, by mental rehearsal, daily. They speak as if the result is already secured. They act as if the outcome has already arrived. They train their nervous systems to trust the unseen. And that's the part most miss. Faith isn't about seeing with your eyes. It's about seeing with your decision. You decide what is true. Then you reinforce it until your subconscious has no room for contradiction. Let me say that again. You do not wait to believe. You decide to believe and defend that decision with everything you've got. It is not blind. It is not naive. It is strategic, because doubt is expensive. Every moment you entertain it, you lose time, you leak energy, you dilute execution. Faith doesn't just help you sleep at night. It sharpens your edge. It speeds up your movements. It magnetizes solutions, partners, opportunities. because you've already made it real internally. And here's the secret. The world reflects your dominant belief. If your faith is strong, the path unfolds. If your faith is fractured, the path breaks beneath your feet. People don't follow plans. They follow conviction. And wealth does the same. It goes where it's expected. It flows where it's commanded. Not arrogantly, but quietly through absolute inner certainty. So how do you build this kind of faith? You rehearse the result. You see yourself speaking with authority. You visualize the wealth already built. You walk into the room, in your mind, as the version of you that already owns the empire. And then you anchor it with feeling. Because emotion burns belief into the subconscious. Do it every morning, every night, until your mind stops arguing and starts obeying. This is not delusion. This is design. You are sculpting a belief system that cannot be manipulated by fear. You are weaponizing your inner world. You are creating a reality so strong within you that the world has no choice but to catch up. So ask yourself, do I truly believe it's mine? Or am I still asking for permission to want it? Because the wealthy never ask. They assume. They walk with the weight of certainty. And that is why life responds to them with force. You must do the same. Choose your belief, plant it deep, and then protect it with your life. Because faith is not fragile. It is the blade that clears the way. We now arrive at the crossroad, the most feared and most freeing habit of all, the ability to decide without hesitation and never look back. There's a moment before every breakthrough where everything goes silent. No applause, no signs, just you and a decision. In that space, the old life pulls on you. The doubts speak, the familiar whispers, and the rope between who you were and who you must become grows tight. That rope is your hesitation. And the only way forward is to cut it. Napoleon Hill discovered something extraordinary in his study of 25,000 people. Every wealthy individual made decisions quickly and changed them slowly. The unsuccessful did the opposite. They waited. They wavered. They negotiated with themselves. And in that gap, they lost momentum, belief, time, and ultimately opportunity. Because wealth has a window. And indecision is the thief that slips in while you wait for clarity. Here's the truth. You already know what to do, but knowing has never been your problem. It's the choosing, the full-hearted, irrevocable yes that changes the atmosphere inside you. The wealthy train themselves to choose with precision, not because they're reckless, but because they refuse to outsource their power. They understand that every delay is a declaration of doubt. So they build a habit, decide, then align, not the other way around. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for perfect timing. They don't crowdsource permission. They cut the rope. Because here's what indecision really is, a protection mechanism. It's a way to stay safe by keeping all options open. But open options create mental clutter, and clutter kills clarity. You can't build an empire with 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Eventually, you have to leap. And no, it won't feel comfortable. But that's the point. Growth begins where comfort ends. The habit of decision is not about being impulsive. It's about becoming trustworthy to yourself. Every time you hesitate, you weaken your self-trust. Every time you decide with clarity, you reinforce power. And the mind learns. It adapts. It begins to associate decision with identity. And from there, the rewiring accelerates. Because a person who decides becomes predictable to themselves. And predictability is power. You no longer waste energy questioning your own choices. You move, you execute, you self-correct, but you do not self-sabotage. There's a legend in ancient warfare. When warriors crossed into enemy territory by ship, the leader would command, burn the boats. No retreat, no going back. Only victory or nothing. That is the spirit of decision. It is a burn the boats mentality. It is the refusal to create a backup identity. It is a line drawn in the mind. And once crossed, nothing is the same. Ask yourself now, where am I still holding onto the rope? What decisions am I delaying out of fear, not wisdom? What would change if I trusted my next move completely? Because here's the paradox. Indecision feels safe, but it's the most dangerous place you can live. It keeps you lukewarm, half in, half out, forgotten by fate, missed by momentum. But when you decide fully, the world reacts. Not because you said the right thing, but because you became the right frequency. Decide who you are. Decide what you will do. Decide what is no longer allowed. And then cut the rope. You were never waiting for wealth. It was waiting for you, for the version of you willing to become silent enough, still enough, focused enough to hear the code that's been whispering from the beginning. Your mind is the vault, not the world, not the economy, not someone else's approval. Everything the obstacles, the delays, the contradiction, they weren't punishment, they were locks. And every habit you've now uncovered was a key. You've seen them for what they are: identity, the starting point of creation; burning desire, the internal flame that eliminates retreat; autosuggestion, the silent reprogramming of your neural software; definiteness, the refusal to wander; faith, belief sharpened into certainty; decision, the cut that severs the old life from the new. These are not tips. They are rituals. They are tools. They are psychological architecture passed down from those who built themselves from nothing, who sculpted wealth not from chance, but from clarity. Napoleon Hill didn't write for motivation. He wrote to awaken something eternal, not the desire to have more, but the decision to become more. And the real truth? Wealth was never the point. It was always about who you become in the process, about the spiritual weight you carry when you no longer need the world to validate you, about the deep, steady knowing that I built this, I chose this, I reprogrammed the very operating system of my mind, and that can never be taken from you. The vault was never outside. The vault was never locked. The vault was you. And every thought you restructure, every belief you rewrite, every decision you reinforce, you turn the dial. Click, 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 until one day the mechanism unlocks. And it doesn't feel like a miracle. It feels like coming home. So now, here you are. No more excuses. No more waiting. No more pretending you don't know what to. You are the key. You are the architect. You are the vault. And the gold was always inside. All that's left is to live from it, deliberately, ruthlessly, relentlessly. Because the moment you do, the world shifts. The current moves, the echo returns, and your legacy begins. You've carried the code all along. Now you have the key. Use it.